Help me reach 1,000 subscribes. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. I read every comments. Thanks. I never thought I'd be the kind of woman people whispered about. The wife who embarrassed her husband. The one who pushed too far. But if you had asked me a year ago, I would have said I was justified. My name is Elizabeth. I'm 38, married to James for 11 years. From the outside, we look stable. Respectable jobs, quiet neighborhood, dinner parties with polite laughter. Inside our marriage, though, there was a growing imbalance I couldn't name at first. James was calm, reserved, almost painfully controlled. I was outspoken, expressive, and increasingly frustrated. I told myself opposites balance each other. I didn't realize I was slowly resenting his silence. The resentment didn't explode all at once. It built in small moments. James never raised his voice, never snapped, never took charge the way I thought a husband should. At work dinners, when a colleague interrupted me, James stayed quiet. When my sister made backhanded comments about my career, he smiled and changed the subject. I told myself he was being mature, but somewhere deep down, I wanted him to defend me loudly, visibly, the way movies teach you men should. Each time he didn't, something bitter settled in my chest. If you've ever felt unheard in a relationship, tap like so this story can reach others who understand that silence. The night everything shifted was my company's annual fundraiser. It was formal, crowded, loud with forced conversations. James came straight from work, still in his suit, tired but polite. During dinner, one of my senior managers made a joke about my emotional management style. People laughed. I froze. It wasn't funny. I waited for James to say something. He didn't. He took a sip of water, eyes down. The heat rushed to my face. By the time we got to the car, my anger had found words. I accused him of being weak, of never standing up for me, of letting people walk all over his wife. James didn't argue. That silence again. It felt like confirmation. My voice got sharper, crueler. I said things I had rehearsed in my head for years. I told him I was embarrassed to be married to a man who couldn't defend his own wife. I asked him what kind of husband just watches. He finally looked at me, really looked at me, and said quietly, "I didn't know you felt that way." That calmness enraged me more than shouting would have. At this point in the story, comment and tell me, should a partner always step in publicly, or does restraint matter? We didn't speak much after that. Days passed with polite distance. I told myself he was sulking. I told myself he needed to reflect. I didn't apologize. I felt owed an explanation, maybe even a promise to change. Instead, James became even quieter. Not cold, just withdrawn. He still did everything he always had. Paid bills, made coffee, asked how my day was. But something essential was missing. The emotional weight I used to lean on was gone. I noticed it, but pride kept my mouth shut. I thought he'd come around. A week later, my mother came over for lunch. She made an offhand comment about James being too soft. Normally, he would excuse himself. This time, he stayed seated, expression unreadable. I laughed nervously and added, "That's just how he is." The words tasted wrong as I said them. James stood up, cleared the table, and said nothing. That evening, he slept in the guest room without explanation. If you think you already know where this is heading, type the word silence in the comments. I began to feel something unfamiliar creeping in, unease, not fear of losing him. Exactly. More like realizing the ground under me wasn't as solid as I thought. James wasn't fighting back. He wasn't pleading. He wasn't trying to prove anything. He was simply present, but not available. The power dynamic I thought I wanted was slipping through my fingers. I replayed my words in the car over and over. They sounded harsher each time. If this part resonates, consider sharing this story with someone who believes words don't leave scars. The following Friday, I came home late. The house was quiet, unusually so. James was sitting at the dining table with a folder in front of him. He looked calm, composed, almost peaceful. He asked me to sit. My heart rate picked up, though I didn't know why yet. I sat across from him, bracing myself for an argument, an ultimatum, something loud. Instead, he folded his hands and said, "I've been thinking about what you said." His voice was steady, too steady. And in that moment, I realized this conversation wasn't going to end. James slid the folder toward me without urgency. Inside were printed emails, calendar notes, and a short handwritten page. He said calmly that when I accused him of being weak, something inside him finally clarified. Not broke, clarified. He explained that he had always believed strength meant restraint, that defending me didn't always mean public confrontation, especially in professional or family spaces where escalation carried consequences. He said he trusted my competence enough not to interrupt it. When I shamed him, he realized I didn't see that as strength at all. I saw it as absence. He told me he wasn't angry. That hurt more than anger would have. He said he had spent the past week asking himself whether he was actually failing me or whether I was asking him to be someone he never claimed to be. He read aloud a line he had written. "I can change behavior, but I can't become performance." I felt my throat tighten. For the first time, I wondered if I had been confusing protection with spectacle. At this point, comment below and share whether you think respect should be loud or quiet in a marriage. James continued. He said my words in the car didn't just criticize a moment. They questioned his worth as a partner. He explained how often he had swallowed discomfort to keep peace, believing compromise was love. Hearing me say I was embarrassed of him made him realize peace built on self-erasure isn't peace at all. I tried to interrupt, but he raised his hand gently, not angrily, gently. That gesture alone felt like a boundary I'd never seen him draw before. Then he told me he was leaving, not storming out, not disappearing, leaving to give himself space to think without being diminished. He said he'd stay with his brother for a while. He wasn't filing for divorce. Not yet, but he couldn't stay in a home where respect felt conditional. My chest felt hollow. I wanted to argue, to justify myself, to explain the pressure I felt from everyone else. But none of it sounded strong enough. He wasn't attacking me. He was choosing himself. I asked him if he still loved me. He paused before answering. That pause scared me more than no. He said love wasn't the question. Alignment was. He needed to know if I respected the man he actually was, not the man I wish he would perform as. When he stood to leave, I noticed how steady his hands were. He had already grieved this version of us. I was just starting. If this moment hit you emotionally, type the word respect in the comments. After he left, the house felt unbearably loud in its quiet. I replayed every moment I had felt disappointed. Every time I chose sarcasm over curiosity. I realized I had been outsourcing my sense of security, expecting James to fight battles I never clearly invited him into. I hadn't asked for support. I had demanded a display. The shame settled in slowly, not sharp, but heavy. It wasn't about him failing me. It was about me misunderstanding him. Days passed before we spoke again. When we did, the conversation was different, quieter, honest. I apologized without defending myself, not for wanting support, but for weaponizing comparison and humiliation. James listened. He didn't rush forgiveness. He said trust repairs don't work on deadlines. That hurt, but it was fair. We agreed to counseling, not to save the marriage at any cost, but to understand whether we could rebuild it on clearer terms. Share this story professionally with someone who believes walking away can sometimes be an act of self-respect, not abandonment. I don't know how our story will look a year from now, but I know this. I mistook silence for weakness and learned too late that dignity doesn't announce itself. James walking away didn't silence me. It forced me to listen. Before you go, like this story if it made you reflect, comment with your thoughts on mutual respect, and subscribe for more real stories about relationships, accountability, and growth.